Hello, welcome again to this platform where I share on thoughts about leadership. Today I'll be talking about imposter syndrome. Along my journey of working with many leaders, I found out that one of the things that seem to bother many leaders is this topic of the imposter syndrome. And while there are many definitions as to what this means, I think a simple operational definition is not feeling qualified or good enough for whatever role or responsibility that has come your way. And today I'm going to be sharing my own experience of dealing with this imposter syndrome through some of my journey in the career and personal perspective. I hope you find it useful as I talk through them. I studied pharmacy, and although I wanted to actually pursue pharmacy as a career, things didn't quite work out that way. So eventually I found myself in a management consulting firm where I was put in front of the client and expected to help them improve their organization. Just imagine that for a moment. Here I am, a guy who's been doing sciences all my life, now about to talk with people about how to improve their business. I felt like an imposter in every sense of the word. And many days I would go in thinking that finally somebody's going to catch me today saying, you don't even know what you're talking about. Thankfully, somehow I navigated through those years. And then I found my first opportunity to actually move outside of my country of origin and work in the Middle East. Here I was again, the only person that looked and sounded like me on the team, and I was put again in front of the client, trying to help them improve their organization. Again, those thoughts started coming back to me, the sense of inadequacy, not being good enough. And on many occasions, I would wonder to myself, maybe somebody's going to catch me now and say, this guy doesn't know what he talks about. I guess added to that now was the sense of thinking maybe my communication or my language wasn't clear to those who were hearing me. Actually, on one of those occasions, I was facilitating a strategy session, and there and then these guys were saying, what word is that? What word is that? Thankfully, I had a director in there who quickly jumped in and kind of repackaged the word I was saying. So those kind of experiences reinforced even more to me that very soon somebody's going to find me out. Fast forward to when I relocated here to North America, and again, those thoughts started coming back. I joined a leading management consulting firm. And again, when I went in front of the client, similar thoughts started plaguing me. And it was even more challenging here because this felt like a very sophisticated environment with many global organizations and executive leaders. Somehow, again, I navigated my way through this time. And as I reflected on all these experiences, some key tips have started coming to me. Even till now, as I do training and coaching for leaders, I still experience these thoughts of inadequacy. Thoughts coming to me and say, who are you to think you can train and coach other people on leadership? Now, I'm going to share with you some of the ways I've been able to deal with this imposter syndrome thoughts. But before I get into that, I think it's helpful for us to analyze a bit more what exactly is the cause of the imposter syndrome. At the very heart of it for me, I believe it's a sense of not feeling qualified enough. And what that simply means is that somewhere in my head, I had defined this very high level of the criteria I felt anyone who was occupying that position or role needed to have, and the qualifications that I had, which were somewhere down here. And so there was this gap between the qualifications that I had and the criteria that I expected for this person or the person in this role to have. And this gap for me was the driver of that imposter syndrome. As I analyzed this more critically, I realized that what was actually happening, the criteria may have been right in what I defined, but somewhere along the way, I seemed to have been downplaying my own qualifications. And what was happening was I was underestimating the things I had done. So therefore, to deal with this imposter syndrome, I realized that all I needed to do was to appreciate who I was and what I brought to the table. And when I say the word appreciate, I use that word very consciously. To appreciate simply means to recognize the full worth of something. So I'm going to share with you now 4 A's that I use to help myself sort of recognize my full worth. Of course, when I was going through those experiences I mentioned, I didn't quite call them the 4 A's. It's just reflecting on them now that I realize that these 4 A's become an easy way to share these thoughts and maybe an even easier way to remember them as you go along your journey as well. So here they are. The first one, achievements. I started intentionally calling back to mind the different things I had achieved over the years. You would remember in my story that I talked about moving from different organizations and different geographies. I started asking myself, really, what have I gained along that journey? What are the things that I have come to achieve along the way? I looked at my resume over and over again just to reinforce those experiences and achievements to myself. I was also intentional in picking along the way my performance appraisals from the different organizations, and I'll just read through the feedback from my performance manager or my hiring manager at the time and the wonderful accolades and comments they had to say. These things reinforced to me the value that I brought to the table. On a personal front as well, I would also look at my achievements in impact in the lives of other people, whether it was a birthday greeting card and the things people had to say about me, or certain text messages and emails that people would just appreciate me for the work I had done. I intentionally go back to these things to reinforce to myself, this is my full worth. Achievement is one of the great ways to reinforce your full worth to yourself. The second one is appearance. Now, I told myself that although I don't feel like I belong in this group or in this circle, I will dress like I belong and I will sound like I belong. So what did I do? I gave myself to dressing up and showing up strongly and speaking articulately and clearly in meetings and discussions. These two things helped me immensely along my journey of dealing with imposter syndrome. So dressing for me and speaking clearly and articulately have been great ways for me to deal with imposter syndrome. I once heard a politician say that even if you're going to say something that doesn't make sense, say it with confidence. You'll be surprised at how many people will believe you. That has helped me along my journey of dealing with imposter syndrome. The third A I'm going to share with you is association. Now, sometimes I still couldn't find the achievement or the appearance to help me through those times, through those imposter syndrome moments. At such moments, what I did was to borrow somebody else's confidence in me. I would often ask myself, perhaps I was in a new role, I would say I've gone through a number of recruitment interviews, hiring managers have asked me questions, and they all thought that I qualified to be in this role. Even if I have doubts about myself, can't I just borrow the confidence of these people that have hired me and run with that? Over the years, I have had to lean on many people's confidence, and I like what a mentor of mine calls it. He calls it borrowed confidence. So that's a great way for you to deal with imposter syndrome as well. One of the people that have been along the journey with me from many years back, from whom I have borrowed confidence on many occasions, is my wife. There are many examples I could share, but one of the examples that really sticks out to my mind was when I was changing jobs and I was going from one company to another, and I was negotiating my salary. While I wanted to ask for double what I was earning at the moment, I didn't feel qualified enough to ask for that. I felt like I didn't recognize my full worth to ask for that amount. Thankfully, my wife was right on my heels and she kept telling me, you're worth this and more. And finally, I borrowed her confidence and I put in the request for that amount and it came through. And that was like the beginning of a different trajectory in my career altogether. So when you don't have the confidence on your own, borrow confidence from those that believe in you. It's one of the ways to deal with the imposter syndrome. Now, the fourth A is alignment. I am a person of faith. I'm a Christian, and I believe that everything about my life has a divine cause and order to it. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that there is someone directing the course of affairs of my life. And when any of those other three A's still don't come through, alignment becomes the place that I look to. In fact, I would say that this fourth A is probably the highest for me when it comes to dealing with the imposter syndrome. Having that knowledge that although I didn't see something coming, it doesn't mean that I wasn't prepared for it. Somehow I have been equipped and enabled to deal with whatever comes in front of me per time, per season. So there you have this, the 4 A's that I have used along my journey of dealing with the imposter syndrome: achievements, appearance, association, and alignment. I'm not sure which of these 4 resonate with you. I'm not sure which one of them you've probably tried to apply along your journey, but I do hope that at least one of them finds a place in your mind where you can begin to use it going forward. And that brings me to my one action point for you today. Anytime you find yourself in front of a new opportunity, a new responsibility, within a meeting, a group, and that tiny voice begins to tell you, who do you think you are to be here? What do you think you have to talk to these people or to address this crowd? I would like you to dig deep and pull from one of these 4 A's and respond to that voice and say, I have achieved this in times past. I'm showing up strong with my appearance and I'm going to speak strong. I have these people that believe in me and I'm walking in alignment with what I believe is my purpose. And you silence that voice, and with that, you'll be able to achieve whatever you set your heart to achieve. The reality of life is this: everybody, and I mean everybody, still has the imposter syndrome. Many of us have just learned how to deal with it and silence the voice as we pursue our destinies. As I wrap up this video, I'd like to remind you, it's never the knowledge that you have in your head that makes a difference. It's the knowledge that you act upon. You've heard about the imposter syndrome today. I hope you do something about it going forward. So remember to take action. Bye for now.